You know, when you really look at the world around us, does it feel like there's evidence of some kind of grand designer? It's genuinely one of the oldest, biggest questions in all of philosophy. And today, we're going to tackle it head on.
I mean, just think about it for a second. The insane complexity of a single cell, the perfect clockwork orbit of the planets, or even just the fact that we can exist to ask this very question. Is all of that just a happy accident, or does it point to something more? Well, that is the very heart of what's known as the design argument. Okay, so to really get a grip on this, we've got to travel back in time a bit. We need to meet the man who framed the classic version of this whole argument, an English clergyman named William Paley. And he came up with this really simple but incredibly powerful analogy that has, no joke, shaped this debate for more than 200 years.
All right, so here's what Paley asks us to do. He wants us to join him in a little thought experiment. Just imagine you're walking across a big open field, and what you find next, well, it's going to have some massive implications.
The logic here is just incredibly direct. You know, if you find a stone, you probably think nothing of it. It could have been there forever, right? But a watch? Paley says, hold on a second. Its intricate little gears, its clear purpose to tell time, that's undeniable proof of an intelligent watchmaker. You would never just assume it randomly put itself together there in the grass.
And from here, Paley draws a direct parallel. He points to something like the human eye. I mean, think about it, with its lens and the retina and the optic nerve all working perfectly together for sight. He argues that's way more complex than any watch. So his conclusion is pretty straightforward. If a simple watch needs a watchmaker, then the universe, in all its complexity, must need a divine watchmaker. It's the classic argument from analogy.
But the argument is actually a little more nuanced than just, looking at complex things. It turns out that people who support this idea see evidence for design in two pretty different ways.
So, on one hand, you've got Paley's argument from purpose. This is sometimes called teleological design. This is all about focusing on specific parts of the world, like an eye or a bird's wing, that seem perfectly made for a specific job. But then on the other hand, there's the argument from regularity. This one isn't about specific objects. It's about the deep underlying order of the universe itself, like the reliable and predictable laws of physics that just, they govern everything.
Okay, but this whole line of reasoning, it faced a huge challenge. And what's wild is that this challenge came before Paley had even published his famous work, and it came from one of philosophy's absolute greatest minds.
And that philosophical heavyweight was the Scottish philosopher David Hume. His critique was so powerful, so devastating, that it fundamentally changed the entire debate. And honestly, it's still central to the whole conversation today. So Hume just systematically took the analogy apart. First, he was like, why are we comparing the universe to a machine? He said it's much more like a vegetable. It grows and changes organically. Then second, he pointed to all the flaws in the world. Disease, natural disasters, all the cruelty. Does that really suggest a perfect designer? Or maybe a clumsy one, an incompetent one, maybe even a cruel one? And he also argued that, hey, order can totally arise from chaos all on its own. And then for his final blow, he pointed out that we only have one universe to look at. With a sample size of one, how can we possibly know what a designed universe is supposed to look like versus a random one?
Hume's whole point, and he said it himself, is that you have to proportion the cause to the effect. Basically, when you look at our flawed, messy, and often brutal world, you just can't make the giant leap to an all-powerful, all-loving creator. The evidence, he argued, just doesn't add up.
So, Hume's critique was a huge philosophical blow, for sure. But the next major challenge came from science, and it offered a completely new way to explain all that biological complexity we were talking about.
And that's where Charles Darwin comes in. His theory of evolution by natural selection, it provided an absolutely stunning new explanation. Darwin argued it wasn't some grand plan or purpose. Instead, it was a relentless, mindless process of adaptation and survival, playing out over millions and millions of years.
And honestly, this was a total game changer. That eye, the very thing Paley saw as undeniable proof of a designer, could now be explained as the result of a long, slow, gradual process. The key is that it looks designed because every tiny step of its evolution gave some kind of survival advantage, and that advantage got passed on.
So you can really see the two worldviews clash here. For Paley, all that complexity is the signature of a top-down plan. But for Darwin, it's the result of a bottom-up, blind process of survival. You could say Paley argues the eye was made for seeing. Darwin would say that the act of seeing is what made the eye, step by agonizing step over eons.
Okay, between Hume's philosophy and Darwin's science, you might think the design argument is totally finished, right? Well, not quite. The focus has just shifted.
Yeah, with Darwin providing such a powerful explanation for biological complexity, the modern supporters of the design argument have kind of moved on. They've shifted their focus from the world of biology to the much bigger world of physics and cosmology.
And this brings us to the modern fine-tuning argument. The idea here is that the fundamental constants of nature, things like the strength of gravity, seem perfectly, almost impossibly balanced for life to exist. I mean, if you changed any of them by just a razor-thin margin, stars would never have formed. Planets couldn't exist. So proponents like the philosopher Richard Swinburne argue that this incredible underlying order is just better explained by design than by sheer random chance.
And that really leaves us with the modern version of this ancient question. Is this cosmic fine-tuning the modern-day signature of Paley's watchmaker? Or is it possible, as some physicists now propose, that there are countless other universes out there, all with different laws, and we just happen to live in the one where the cosmic lottery happened to come up in our favor? Is it design or is it coincidence? Well, that's a debate that is very much alive and well.